Hi, I'm Mike Baker, and welcome to National Arts. On this program, we'll explore jazz in two entirely different ways. First, through the performance art of keyboardist Herbie Hancock, and secondly, through the visual art of Billy Dee Williams. Most of us know Williams through his numerous movie roles, but over the years, he's been taking a look at jazz by means of a paintbrush. Through his creative expression, he's fashioned a world of brilliantly hued subjects, thus enlivening sultry settings and creating a smoky world of sight and sound. Most people aren't aware that you got the Hall-Garten Award Scholarship for your painting expertise, your artistic endeavors.
When I was 19 years old, yes.
And it's kind of a nice return, really, to your early work, thinking that jazz had a profound influence on your painting.
Well, of course, you know, when I grew up, we grew up on jazz. I mean, it was all around, everywhere, and particularly bebop. I mean, that to me was like an original moment in American musical history. And so I embraced it, and I decided I really wanted to try and talk about those, to try to get inside of it from my perspective as a painter, and see what I could come up with, and see how it would impact on people.
It's affected your colors and your textures within your work too, hasn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. I started fooling around with some ideas. I've been trying to play around with an idea of talking about it from the perspective, I've talked about it from the perspective of the musician, as I view it, but I've also decided to talk about it from the perspective of all of those people who embraced those musicians, which I think is very interesting, because I like to tell stories in my paintings. When I did this, I was thinking of Hazel Scott, and I was thinking about probably some prominent leading trumpet player at the time, but I was really thinking primarily about trying to find out a way to use the heart shape and express some feelings through the heart shape.
If you look at bebop, which you so admire, it kind of turns swing inside out a little bit, and the accentuation was placed on the harmony rather than the melody. And that's beautifully represented here, I think.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. Harmony is a result of chaos.
Yes. Organized chaos, I suppose.
It's organized chaos,
yeah. Sure. Yeah, I love this piece. This is one of my favorites.
Yeah, well, this one generally hangs in at the Les Celebrités at the Essex House in New York. That's his real home. You had a comment about your whole life being an aesthetic and creative adventure, and in a way, as we look at the title of this, The Artist, Billy Dee the Artist, yeah, that so nicely sums it up. And one of the things I always want people to know, I mean, people know me in film, but I always want people to know that there's something about my life that is not realized, and that I'm a person who is really looking at life and looking for things to talk about and express. So here we have the painter. He's over here looking at one particular thing. He's over here looking at something else. He's over here applying his ideas in some transparent way. It's talking about somebody who's looking at the transparency of life.
In a way, this is you too, because I know you love to work on a variety of pieces at one time, not just dedicate yourself to finishing one piece at one sitting. So this is a bit of you here, working on a variety of things.
It's the actor as well as the painter. It's me playing out a lot of situations and being interested in a lot of situations.
Billy Dee, I can see a little bit of the continuation of the love affair that you have with great jazz. The hearts are here once again, but there's a little bit of mixed media here with the actual score of the song, When Sunny Gets Blue.
Again, I'm playing with heart shapes, you know, trying to find a way to use it, express it in some... There's nothing new in this world, I mean, but you can take old ideas and try to fool around with it in your own fashion. So there were a series of these mixed media ideas using actual sheet music. This is actual sheet music from When Sunny Gets Blue. But of course, the saxophone is always one of my favorite instruments, and I use the sax in a lot of the paintings that I do, because the sax for me is like a voice. It's like a human voice. It can almost express itself the way a human being expresses itself.
It can be smoky, moody.
Yeah.
It can be ebullient.
Yeah.
You know, the interesting thing about this, someone who reads music, someone who's grown up playing music all their life, it's almost like a second language to them. This painting, in a way, speaks to that kind of person in an entirely different way. It has the language of great art, but it also has the language of music within it by virtue of the mixed media. Billy, when I looked at Jitterbug here, I saw the Savoy label, I saw the RCA label, big labels during the bebop era, Major League in 1945-48, and you've just done a splendid job of conveying all that motion, energized motion.
Also, I tried to capture something about the color and tone and hue of the moment too, which I remember in the 40s as a kid growing up. There was a certain kind of a color that existed, and I think hopefully I captured it in this thing. But of course, you know, the jukebox was a very big thing.
That's kind of like the heart of this piece in a way. That's the human heart in this particular painting.
Because I've been doing a whole series on the Negro airplane pilots during the Second World War, and I wanted to talk about what was going on at that particular time. You know, the jukebox, the jitterbug. Of course, there's Mickey Mouse, and Minnie Mouse. I've used Mickey and Minnie. I did another painting, as a matter of fact, with the jukebox using Mickey and Minnie, because Mickey and Minnie were quite significant at that moment.
Yes, they were. They dictated the lives of a lot of young people. More mixed media here with some of the notations.
Yeah,
notations upon notations, which I would exemplify the complexity, I guess, of the harmony and the rhythm.
When I did this painting, I was thinking about Wayne Shorter, really, in particular, and I know Wayne, who's one of the great exponents of the saxophone. When you talk to Wayne, he can really tire you out. His mind is so abstract and so musical that his references are like musical references, whatever subject matter he happens to be talking about. For instance, he likes movies a lot. When he talks about movies, you always feel like the man is seeing it in musical abstract terms. And I decided, well, you know, they're musicians. I just decided to do a piece where musicians are talking to each other. But they're talking in musical terms.
Billy D, I see Art Tatum here just banging away on some great improvisational jazz.
Oh, why not?
And the hands of this particular musician are exaggerated somewhat by virtue of the fact that of the tremendous talent that's an extension of those hands, I would think.
Well, the whole idea here was it's not really Art Tatum so much as I was influenced by Monk.
Okay.
But I'm also very much influenced by Tatum. But here I just really wanted to talk about a smoke-filled room. I mean, I did a little difficulty. I thought to myself, well, maybe I shouldn't put smoke in here because, I mean, everybody's against smoking these days. But listen, if this is what was going on, this is what you have to express. But also with the hands, I really wanted to give a general feeling that there is some movement here. It's just more than the hands being on the piano, but when the hand moves away from the piano before it goes back to the piano.
In a way, your art is helping to elevate the art form, the jazz art form.
Oh, I agree with you 100%. But it's fine arts again. We're talking about fine arts. It's like Betty Carter to me is one of the great exponents of vocalese, jazz vocalese, and you know, and there are a lot of people. She came up with a lot interesting. She came up with Sarah Vaughan. She came up with Ella Fitzgerald, who were all great scat people when they got into it. But she for me had something very, very different, very special, and sometimes that difference and that special difference is not understood until years later. And I think of jazz that way, or this whole question. I don't really like to call it jazz. I really like to call it improvisational music. You know,
there you go.
A lot of abstractions going on.
Speaking of the improvisational nature of it and the rhythmic nature of it, we've got to have to mention Thelonious Monk, and you have a definite warm place in your heart for him. Wasn't he an incredible man?
Oh, yeah, I was 20 years old when I first saw him. I was, and I used to go to all of the jazz clubs, you know, 52nd Street clubs, the Village clubs, but I saw him for the first time. I had heard his music, but I saw him for the first time at Randall's Island in New York City, and I just could not believe. I could not believe this man. He was just so. There was something else going on, you know, and I wasn't quite sure what it was. But I mean, I think I've even read where some of the musicians he played with. I don't know if you've ever seen Straight No Chaser. It's a very interesting documentary on him. And you always got the feeling a lot of the guys that his peer people didn't really know quite what he was doing. But I did a character, as a matter of fact, up in Toronto. I did a movie called Giant Steps, a movie that nobody will ever see. It's one of my best roles. One of the best roles I've ever done. But it was about a jazz musician, and I kind of patterned the character after Thelonious Monk.
There's a tonal color that seems to be a common thread throughout your pieces. Blues, some new blues really, some new blacks, some new grays, some new tones altogether unique to your work. I mean, was that conscious or did that just evolve as you began to paint?
Well, it's evolution, and all of it is conscious. I mean, I'm very much aware of technique because I have a fairly extensive background in the arts. You know, my whole life has been an aesthetic life, but I've always been very much impressed with what they call the chiaroscuro school of painting, which is the Dutch school of painting primarily, and that's playing with lights and darks. And of course, being an actor, you see, you're very conscious of the drama, and I try to bring a lot of drama to the paintings because what I want, the kind of stuff I do, I'm not interested in doing paintings for people just to simply match their rugs with or their couches with. I really want people to walk into a room and become absorbed with what's going on. I mean, the whole idea for me is to create a situation where you recognize something, it's recognizable, because my life is, I see my life very much like that because I do a whole series of what they call journey paintings. And what I like to do is, it's a bit of a device for me, is to create things that are clear enough for you and obscure enough for you to bring your own experiences into it.
Yeah, it's noticeable. There is some obvious portraiture there, but there's a lot of energized motion in your pieces, and maybe that's the contribution as someone purchases your work that you make to their appreciation of the art form.
Yeah, I think so. And the other thing is, I think the other thing too is that I see myself as an eclectic kind of individual. That is, I'm not interested in just relegating my life to this point of view or that point of view. I live in the gray area, and once I had a discussion with my daughter about this. She goes to Brown University, and she says, "Daddy, you can't live in a gray area." I says, wait a minute, let me explain here. You know, what I'm talking about, I feel myself being the full spectrum of the colors, and for me to live that way makes it a lot more fun and much more interesting, rather than just holding on to this point of view or holding on to that point of view.
Meg, I know what it is to hang on to something so ugly that it rots you from inside out. Nothing good comes from it.
He'll try to kill me again, won't he?
Yes, I think he will.
I hope he tries.
I've gone this way before. The price is too much for everybody. But I'm telling you, this is different. You've been warned.
You're such a profoundly gifted actor and so recognizable in that regard, but you want to be remembered as an artist.
I want to be remembered as an actor too.
Okay.
I want to be remembered for everything that I do.
Good for you.
Yes.
But
all the good things I do.
But your art endeavors are very important to you now.
Oh,
you're thinking about exhibiting. Obviously, you're here in Washington, D.C. with a wonderful exhibit.
Yeah,
and you want to get out there.
Oh, absolutely. There's no question about it. I've been exhibiting since, I think, about '89. And in galleries. But you know, I have one of my paintings now in the National Portrait Gallery at the Smithsonian. Mm-hmm. So I'm moving in that direction. I really want to show my stuff in museums.
And your mic check, you gave us a little of your credo. Would you share that with us?
Okay. Out of the night that covers me, black as the pit from pole to pole, I thank whatever gods may be for my unconquerable soul. In this fell clutch of circumstance, I have not winced nor cried aloud. Under this bludgeoning of chance, my head is bloody but unbowed. It matters not how straight the gate, how charged the punishment the scroll. I am the master of my fate. I am the captain of my soul.